Welcome back to Dive Vibe, everybody. I have had a lot of questions recently about my setup for the KISS Sidewinder. I did a video a while back with some Sidewinder tips and tricks, and I got a comment from somebody that watched that video and said, "You don't do any of that stuff anymore." And he had a great point. I've changed the way I dive my Sidewinder a lot, and I want to go over that with you right now. So this isn't really a tips and tricks video. We're just running down how I personally dive my Sidewinder. If you don't like it or you don't do it this way, that's no big deal. You dive yours however you want. This is just what I do. Let's get started. Okay, so obviously this is not a class. I'm not teaching you how to set up a rebreather here. If you're already a Sidewinder diver and you want to know how I set mine up, or you're curious about how you might configure yours, that's what this is for. This is not a substitute for training. Get proper training. I am purposely not going into the extreme detail that I would in a course, so don't use this as a guide. First things first, I have switched to an X-Deep BCD because I want to be as familiar with it as possible. About half my students are using X-Deep Stealth 2s. So I want to make sure that I'm familiar with it. So I picked one up. I'm going to dive it for a year or so and then decide which one I like better. Right now I like the X-Deep a lot. The Katana 2 is still great. I think it might be a little bit easier to set up for the Sidewinder actually, since it was designed with the Sidewinder in mind, but that's for another video. I'm going to start from the top, work my way down. I'm using the Gollum Gear Shrimp DSV. The reason I am using it is not because I prefer it over the KISS DSV or anything like that. I think the KISS DSV is fine. It was just the one that happened to work for me at the time. I wanted to give it a shot and I really like it. One thing I do really like about this thing is this clicky attachment system. This bayonet mount is just so nice and secure. I really do like that. KISS DSV, Gollum Gear DSV, in my mind, they're both really interchangeable, so not a big deal. Slide this down a little bit. Got the regular old loop hoses. Now I've attached my canisters to the BCD a little bit differently than I have in the past. Normally you've got these two hose clamps, and on the Katana 2, they clip in to the spots that are made for it on the BCD. The X-Deep doesn't have anything that's made for it specifically, and I recently went down to ProTech and I got to see how those guys do it. They do it a little bit differently. They actually attach their upper attachment point to the tower and they run it through here, through one of these little bungee loops, and clip it to a piece of paracord in the back. And it actually works really good. They completely take off the lower attachment point. It's not necessary. You've just got it attached here on the Counterlung. Other than that, the only other thing that's different is I am using the Light Monkey towers. I just feel like they're a little bit more secure than the standard KISS ones. If you like the KISS ones, more power to you. I did get to try out the ones that are coming on the Sidewinder 2, and I think those are really nice. When I get a Sidewinder 2, I probably will not use the Light Monkey ones. I'll use the new KISS ones because they are very nice. Everything else, pretty much stock. I have a elbow here so that my hose doesn't point directly into my side from the MAV. I am running just the MAV dual button. No ADV. My ADV is plugged, as is my OPV. Plugging your ADV is a decision that you need to make. I don't think it's for everyone. It can be a very alarming feeling to inhale and not have that ADV trigger and give you some gas, and then you have to reach down. And it's also, you don't have a way to add diluent no-handed. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's a trade-off. Personally, I like it right now. I may add the ADV back at some point. The reason I'm not diving the OPV is for saltwater. I was having trouble with salt water dripping through the OPV and down onto the sensors and the Molex connections. So I wanted to make sure that didn't happen too much, so I just got rid of the OPV and I'll manage that accordingly. That does mean if I bail out that I have to vent gas out of the DSV, which is not exactly ideal, but also not really a huge problem. If you're bailed out, and it's for a good reason, you're likely not going back onto the loop. You likely can't go back onto the loop. So at that point, flood it, who cares? Moving down lower, I used to have this bungee connection for the circ clips on the Counterlung bungeed underneath the band that ran here. You can see that in my old video if you want to see that. But now I've just made a little loop. So when I take these out, I can just throw it back there and I don't lose it. And when I put it back in, the bungee actually helps retain the clip. And if it gets caught on something, it doesn't really pull it out, not unless you come back and deliberately pull it to get it out. So I really like that. I think it's a great way to keep that clip retained and make it easy to take out, and so you don't lose it. Moving down further, nothing really weird on my BCD. I do have an extra little attachment point here that I'm using for my steel cylinders. I'm diving in Florida a lot more, so I'm using steel 85s in the caves, and I want to have this free for my spools and all that good stuff. So this is where I connect my cylinders to. Typically running a 2-pound weight on my waist to offset the valve and first stage from the O2 bottle. If I need to add more weight, I've got another weight plate here, designed by my boy Marcelin, and I also have obviously the spine weights in the X Deep. And right now with 85s, I'm typically running a 2-pounder here and a 2-pounder up here, and that keeps me pretty trim and relatively neutral. If we're gonna really get into it, I've got a cutting device on my shoulder, one of these easy cuts in a Kydex sheath. Love that actually. And then a stubby little knife on my waist. Moving down even further, I've got the X-Deep weight or light plate down here, so I mount my canister light right there. And then my O2 bottle hangs below that, and I've got some video I can put up to show you what that looks like. And that's about it. The only other thing that is different from how I've previously dove is I used to be a big fan of the Nerd, and I am still a big fan of the Nerd. I think it's great. I think it's a super safe computer because it puts the PO2 and everything right in your line of sight, especially if you're a photographer or something like that. It's really good. But one thing that I found with it, I don't like running 2 computers connected to the cells on this rebreather. And I really needed to be able to show my students what was going on with my PO2 if I was demonstrating a diluent flush and stuff like that. So I am rocking a Petrol 3. And of course, I've got my modified slate down here that stays on my wrist so I can make notes. And that's about it. If there's anything you have questions on or you'd like me to clarify, I would be happy to do that. Just let me know in the comments. And I apologize for all the sweat. It's starting to get warm here in Texas and I can't have the fan on right now because we're recording audio. But that's how I'm diving my KISS Sidewinder in 2025. Before we go, one of my patrons asked me to talk about my Counterlung dryer in a video. And my patrons get what they want because they're cool. But anyway, so this is something that I've been using for a while. I've gone through a few different iterations. It's just a little adapter that I've 3D printed for a PC case fan, 120 millimeter. What it does is it pulls air through the Counterlung to dry it. It won't dry like a super wet Counterlung, but if you shake all the water out of it, it'll have your Counterlung pretty much bone dry by the next morning, which is nice if you don't want stuff growing in your Counterlung and making you sick. Well, that's not good. But yeah, it's very simple. If you want the STL file for it so you can print it yourself, I do make it available to my patrons on my Patreon. And I am contemplating making these and selling them on my website. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, let me know. It's a very simple design. It just plugs in USB. If I start making them, I'm going to use these fans that actually have a little on-off high, medium, low switch, which is nice because this one I'm just plugging in to turn it on and off because it's literally just a PC case fan that I've adapted to USB. Let me know if you want one. As always, I'd like to take a quick second to say thank you to my patrons. They make videos like this possible. They are the coolest people in the world, and if you would like to be one of those people, then you can follow the link to Patreon in the pinned comment below. And of course, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for diving with me today, and I'll see you in the water.